of matter. And this is a Venus wisdom on a Venus day. Although this is Mercury hour, I was preparing for this video on a Venus hour and then it passed. So right now the ascendant is in Virgo, ruled by the retrograde Mercury in 6 degrees, and I do want to talk about this Mercury on this episode. This Mercury sextiles Saturn in Pisces, and Venus is applying to sextile this Mercury. Well, the moon is in 20-degree Aquarius, so the moon is applying to Deneb Algedi, separating from an aspect with Lilith. It does square the Sun in Taurus, which separates from a conjunction with Uranus, and it sextiles Chiron and trines Venus. No, how come? No, it trines the lot of fortune. Sorry. So Venus right now is in Cancer, in 5 degrees Cancer, and I think did I do an episode for Venus in Cancer? I don't remember even. I definitely need to do. And there are two things I want to talk about. That is the Venus actually approaching Leo and the retrograde in Leo. And this Mercury retrograde, this current Mercury retrograde in Venus sign, in Taurus. While I see the moon is getting close to Deneb Algedi, it will be separating from a square with the sun and in conjuncting Mars. So you may want to do a Deneb Algedi election, but I don't know about this square from the sun, and I don't know about this inconjunct to Mars. So I will probably not be attempting this election. Anyway, why do I speak about Mercury retrograde on a Venus day? And the reason being, Mercury has been on the 6th degree of Taurus for a couple of days. Okay, I've literally ordered me another Venus talisman at this time, when the moon was applying to it, and a Mercury talisman. Oh, it was a Mercury talisman exactly when the moon was applying to Mercury. The moon was on the degree of Mercury in Aquarius when I ordered it, and previously that day also another Venus talisman. So Mercury is moving so slow in Taurus that the way I like to refer to this slowing down, because this is not just retrograde, it's also slowing down. And when we think about the retrograde in general for the personal planets, in general for the planets, it's not that the planet is going backwards, it's that it changes its speed, and it changes its speed from our vantage point of view, and because of the distances, it's closer to the sun. It's closer to the Earth than to the sun. And so when something is close, is moving closer, then we look at it and it looks like it moves backward. Okay, think about the Einstein time experiment. Okay, when you drive in a fast car and in the lane you have lights, and these lights are one after another, and you're driving fast, then it seems like the lights slow down and moving towards you. Then this is what the retrograde looks like. So it's not only that Mercury is retrograde, but it's actually moving from our point of view. It's not really moving the slowest, but from our point of view, it looks like it moves the slowest at this point. And that's like taking a frame and stretching it to be 16 frames. Okay, it's like taking a picture that is supposed to flash for, that usually flash, not supposed to, it's usually flashing for 1/16 of a second, and stretching that into the whole, not second, but the whole minute. That's how time slows down for our communication, for the details that we pay attention to, for our bureaucracy. And actually, I literally ordered a Mercury and Gemini talismanic materia. I don't know if it's a wise decision to do it on that day or not, but the moon was applying to Mercury from Aquarius, and I'm like, I guess so. I guess that's the antidote, maybe. So, um, and then, funnily enough, I wanted to download the document that Sphere and Sundry has for the remediation prayer to Mercury, and I downloaded it, but my phone is so full with data that it cannot open the document. Okay, this is how retrograde Mercury is. Okay, so you could have a simple conversation that you are trying to make and you just can't make it through. Also, if for me, this Taurus is in my third house, so I've been trying to clean my house for Friday, and I got to the point where in the beginning, and I'll tell you also how I sorted it by chance. I was cleaning, so I'll just clean this tiny spot, but it seems like a tiny spot in a sea of what needs to be done. And not only that, as I began to do that, instead of things to go easier, because usually it's like, okay, I find it difficult to do it, I get to it, and then it begins to flow, and then it stops whenever it stops. But this, not only did it not begin to flow and stop whenever it stopped, it became heavier. So I relaxed. I went on Facebook and I advocated for victims of abuse that were tagged as psychiatric and mistreated, and that somehow opened the gate to begin to clean more of my house. Like after I did that, now the moon being in my 12th house, so advocating for the visibility of people who are dealing with those symptoms where they can barely move something and then things become heavy, advocating for these people kind of moved around, kind of helped the motion. So I addressed it from the moon. And this is another thing that I give you is concrete cases, okay? This is not so much like, it's not sharing my experience for getting validation at this point, but pretty sharing concrete cases that are not remedial, but how the astrology plays. And I was looking at, I need to speak with the makler, okay, the real estate person. And it's not a big conversation, but so many things happened around this time. So my phone was working and then not working. And then there was some fine that I don't know if we got the fine or didn't get the fine for cleaning and putting things outside like everybody do, but they charged or they came to and then something happened with the neighbor, so I said maybe the neighbor called the municipality and I don't know. Then the neighbor said she didn't know and whatnot. So I kind of feel like there are many things with this Mercury retrograde, and it's not the usual Mercury retrograde in the sense that usually something goes down. Usually something is like, okay, my phone is not working, then I rethink another thing that I didn't address, and then I address it, and then it's resolved in one way or another. Okay, I've had one Mercury retrograde where I lost my glasses. And I was trying to do work with Mercury, and I asked for my glasses back, and then I found my glasses, but I lost my phone. So it was kind of humorous and funny. But the next phone that I got stayed with me until today, which is still here. And he did like he's going to collapse, but just I was supposed to have a hard conversation, and then the phone collapsed, and then I didn't have this conversation yet, and that is how stretched up things are. Usually it's like, oh, this something, Mercury does something, you miss something, and usually you can also find it during Mercury retrograde, and you pay attention to a certain detail, and then either you fix it and correct it, or alternatively you change what you need to change. Okay, and for us, we had something with checks, so I was given 2 checks for 1 month, and was supposed to get one back and give one another. And as I'm looking at the checks, I see that the address that I was sent the checks was right, but the address on the checks is wrong, and I don't know the implications of that. But it was one of the things that I paid attention to, and all kinds of things in the contract that are related to housing in general and things that I advocate for. Okay, and I speak about daily. So I get the sense that this Mercury retrograde, and especially when I see that Mercury has been in 6 degrees Taurus for a couple of days. You know, when did I order my talisman? I think yesterday, but also the previous day there was Mercury retrograde, and I felt it slowing down, slowing down, slowing down, so much so that there are conversations that I just can't have, there are things that I just can't do, and I'm not alone in this experience. I know a person for whom Mercury rules their 6th house, so they've been feeling this great heaviness that they can barely see anyone and so on. And it's not the usual, they're not dying or anything like that, it's just Mercury retrograde. Um, so I wanted to bring this out on the Venus Wisdom on the Venus Day because right now our Venus parts, our Venus in general, the way we experience this Venus is very much related to this Mercury. Because Mercury is slowing down so much so that we take a look at every frame because every frame is important. And what we take a look at in our Taurus house, regardless of your ascendant, are things that we didn't tend to perhaps for years. Okay, because Mercury will have its retrograde in water signs, then fire signs, then air signs, and now it's doing this in earth signs. And so we haven't looked at these things for years. This is true to every Mercury retrograde. But because Taurus is a fixed earth sign, then changing those things is even more difficult to tend to. Well, so Mercury is moving slow. It's taking it slow. If there are conversations that you've been trying to have and are like, I wake up every day and I'm like, it's just this simple detail. Why can't I just do it? So sometimes, okay, like me, I just need to pick up the phone and speak. And I'm like, oh, but I painted the door. Oh, but that was the thing with the trash. Oh, but that was the thing with the neighbor. Oh, but this. Oh, but that. And oh, I have already said certain things and now it seems like they're out of context and I couldn't speak on the phone, and all the things that you did, like flashbacks of traumas from years, kind of comes out in this mundane situation of like, oh well, the people that are supposed to help me are not really helping and they're oppressing people instead. And so those tiny details, Mercury small details, deal with big finances, Venus and Taurus, attaining of luxury, sensual pleasure, or what do we consider luxury or luxurious, as well as sensuality, being safe in our sensuality. Um, the, the fact that so many things that we consider as luxury are actually basic human needs for us to be civil and sane. Venus emphasizes pleasure, okay, and the sensuality and the importance of pleasure for our human relations. How important it is to enjoy our life so that we can have connection. How much leverage and relaxation do we need to find something in common with someone who doesn't seem to have something in common with us, and maybe even we feel threatened by and feel threatened by us. Okay? Mercury retrograde takes us frame by frame, especially now in this degree, frame by frame, through all the significations of the conjoining of Mercury and Venus. And so we are learning certain things about ourselves. And that depends on your house. And where is your natal Venus, and so on and so forth. Where's your natal Mercury? So this is the first thing that I wanted to accentuate. I've run into great shorts in YouTube that talk about it. Was a woman who teaches people tricks on how to clean, and she addresses the topic of laziness and understands that what we call laziness in many cases is simply certain things that we didn't address. So maybe you have certain anxieties and then we can't, sometimes it helps, sometimes cleaning helps with anxiety, but sometimes the other way around, you can't get to it. Sometimes we feel like our life is meaningless or we're doing something that is meaningless, and it's like, how do I get this to be meaningful? Sometimes, like in the case that happened for me today, it was a telos that I would advocate for the people who can't lift a finger, as the song goes, but in different contexts because of the violence that they've been through and so on and so forth, that are considered lazy and are considered dysfunctional. And instead of people helping them, like even you're a social worker, they would come and say, I will sit with you in the room, but you are doing these things so that you show yourself that you can. And sometimes it's the right approach, but sometimes no. Sometimes you do need people to literally help you fold your clothes, wash your house. Like, you're not supposed to be the only one tending to that in those times of crisis. And sometimes it is needed. It's not taking advantage, it's not avoiding things, but it's genuinely what the type of help that is needed is not provided. And instead, people take the children out from the mothers or fathers. It's happened to men as much as women, right? The men just have less legitimacy to speak. So Venus in Cancer is tending to those reflections and projections that we have on the Venusian. And with Mercury retrograde, we are more addressing the challenges in having this moisture in the Venus part than that relaxation. May 23rd is going to have an election with Venus, with the moon applying to Venus. She's already going to be in, I think, 13 degrees of Cancer. Mercury is already going to be retrograde. I don't know where Mars is going to be, but I think Mars is probably going to already be in Leo, separating from Pluto. So that's one thing. We also have Jupiter here in the 29 degrees of Aries. We just entered the 29 degrees of Aries, squaring this Mars, like Mars is applying to square Jupiter, and very much applying to the tight square with Pluto, retrograde, so that T is very active with all the events related to it. And my Venus wisdom on the Venus day is that now Venus is in Cancer, but we cannot ignore the Mercury. We cannot ignore that it's not just Venus in Cancer, it's also the nourishment. And because it's also finances, so our investments. For example, this concrete case, okay, this is my birthday month, and I just ordered me, there's certain talismans that I ordered before that and arrived, and I was really happy about that. And then I said, okay, I'm going to prepare the bread for the next month, and I'm going to add more Venus there, add more Mercury. It's my Mercury perfection year. And finally, I was able to order the Sphere and Sundry stuff. And so, yes, that does leave me with certain budget for food that is very limited. And then the question is like, do I regret making these purchases? No. I don't think I made bad choices with my money. I just think that overall, we're not supposed to live that tightly with our budget to begin with. The way to something is as important as achieving the goal, both in orgasm and in housing and in material gain. We're not supposed to be stifled so much so that we become murderous because we haven't had our daily coffee, or because we hadn't had our sitting in a place that has air condition. We're not supposed to live this tightly, and we're not supposed to not invest in every once in a while, whether it's the birthday or a celebration or whatnot, in something that is more considered luxurious. This sustains the economy. If I just buy, bread and butter and grow my veggies and I don't consume anything and I don't buy me luxury stuff, I'm not helping the economy. Okay, and if I'm living on welfare, your money goes to things that are not returning to the market. It's if with my income I'm able to sustain life so much so that little by little I'm able to develop a routine where I'm able to contribute in more and more ways to society, and then perhaps work, perhaps volunteer, perhaps do activism as I do, perhaps all of the above. Then it sustains the economy, because the tax money that you pay that comes to the people that, let's say, receive welfare, goes back to the market. And then we can heal and we can live, and then we can begin to plunge into working in a way that sustains us and not hurts our health. So this is where we criticize people's choices with money, but in the worst financial crises, people are actually encouraged to consume. We're actually encouraged to spend money. Oh, I'll give you another example. When I'm growing, let's say I'm growing lettuce or growing potatoes, then as I'm planting potatoes, I also go to the grocery store and I buy potatoes and I make me food with potatoes, and I make a salad with my lettuce, and I buy lettuce and I make a salad with my lettuce, and then I add 1 leaf, 2 leaf from what I can also add, and then I will have a growing lettuce because I invest into it, and then it comes back to me. But that's the same if I want to have a business. Let's say I'm an aromatherapist. Okay, so I want to consume, okay? I want to consume products that other people make. I want to invest into it. I want to indulge, especially if it's my birthday month. I want to indulge, I want to enjoy. And you know what? After I did it, then I had the power to prepare this. Okay, this is a passion flower that's growing in our yard. So I could put some olive oil here, and now this is a product that I make, and that I can use it in my creams, so that I can have more energy. To sustain something, you need to invest in it, you need to consume, and it comes back to you. But how will it be if we don't get the leverage to do that to begin with? Okay? Because if I was thinking like I have only so much money, even though it is my birthday month, I must buy this, like the best food that I can buy for this money, and something to clean the house, and that's it. No. Then where does your money go? To the products that the government already governs. Okay, to the bread, to the milk, maybe some vegetables if I don't find the one that they throw away. So it's like I get money, and it goes on the things that are not really sustaining the economy. But if I buy a product that this woman made, or the Dast man made, or something creative, or if I buy canvas and I draw and I paint, and now I have a product now, okay, maybe I can sell it, maybe not. Now I'm beginning to not just think about my next meal. And if I grow food in my place, then I can already feed myself and other people. And then if I grow food, I planted the seed, I will buy that. I will buy that at the grocery store. I will invest money in that. Okay? That is a part of how economy works. Okay? Mercury retrograde is here to show us this. It's and you could have been making it with finances. Like, oh, I made this thing, and it's like, did I make a wrong choice with my finances? No. But we do need to have this more leverage to be able to sustain an economy. If all the advice that we give people is skip your coffee, skip your this, skip your that, skip your that, and they're not doing anything, and then eventually the government comes and tells them, well, there is not enough water for your crops, there is not enough energy to power your air condition. Because of carbon emission, you cannot grow plants or cows or chickens. Then how do we sustain the economy? How do we sustain that? If Venus in Cancer is being nourished emotionally and being validated, where does the leverage to validate someone come from? And Mercury retrograde literally take us frame by frame, bit by bit, to the details. To the details. To the details that if you go to your social worker, they say, and social workers very much this Cancer quality, they say, oh, maybe you could save here, or maybe you can save on that, or maybe you can save on that, when your soul is exploding to live. Where instead of taking the money that you pay taxes for your welfare, for your medical insurance, instead of you having a house with a yard, that let's say we had COVID, it was good to stay, to not connect physically with too many people, okay? But the solution is not to stay in your one-room apartment that has the shower with the bedroom in the city, but rather to, if that was happening in a normal society, then you would stay more at home. You would order food, as a lot of us did order food, so that you can sustain yourself. You maybe would buy yourself some luxury products so that you can enjoy. Maybe you would do a spa day at home, and then you would enjoy growing your garden, tending to the yard, walking in your acres by foot, so that you have some acres and acres where you don't necessarily have to meet another person, so you don't spread the virus if you have it. And then eventually it would subside, people would leave, people would have less gatherings, but would leave. And so from epidemiology, the virus would subside. That is what Saturn in Aquarius came to do. Aquarius is the sign of space. Saturn in Aquarius is sticking to a place where you have a lot of space in. But instead, people did close themselves off, but in places that are so tiny that you open if you have a window, you open it and your neighbor can smell the breath of your mouth and get the virus through the window, because the buildings are so closed. And then you close yourself even more and close yourself even more, and then things exploded. What is the first business that boomed afterward? Was the hotels and tourism, because people needed to save their families. And what do you do when you have a vacation? Usually you have a baby. So we had boomers in this situation. So that is another thing that Mercury is stretching. And with this sextile to Saturn, this exact sextile to Saturn in Pisces, talking about healing, about medication, about creativity, about trade, okay, creative rights, accessibility, marketing, as well as the sensual pleasure and communication and things to do with a projection on women by the scientific community with the moon in Aquarius, and by the healing community, or by the artist with the moon applying to Saturn in Pisces. Then you might think about the song, what are the love songs that you are listening to? I had a friend who was a relationship coach, and she did an apprenticeship on me, and she said one of the classes were to listen, what kind of love songs do you listen to? What are the lyrics? Okay, what love songs do we play out when we listen over and over and over and over again? Can we change them? Can we write new ones? So this would probably be when the moon will hit Pisces. But this also is healing, or the anesthesia. Do we numb ourselves to our emotions? Do we feel our emotions? In Aquarius, it's more how the scientific community treats women. So think about women diseases. Think about womb diseases. Okay, all the cases with Pfizer, I don't know about Moderna because we had Pfizer in my country. So the vaccine is like, okay, that sounds like a good idea, but then you do that and there is problem with your menstruation. So you go to your doctor naively and you say, well, I have these things in the menstruation since the vaccine. And you say that naively, and the woman is saying, kind of alluding to your not knowing your body or your cycle or your this or your that, maybe from this, maybe from that, maybe you are pregnant. Darling, I did not have sex in I don't know how many months. COVID, have you not noticed? Maybe astral sex, but you don't get pregnant from that. And they're still going through this. This cannot be from the vaccine. When a doctor tells you this cannot be from the medication, then you know it is from the medication. And this is doctors, it's not traders in the market. It's not like you go to buy fish and they need to make their own marginal profit. And this is the culture where they say, well, this fish is 20 euros. And you say, well, no, maybe 5 euros. They say, 15 euros, maybe 10 euros. No, give me 12. Your 12 euros is okay. But this becomes your medication, your menstrual cycle, the fifth vital sign, the heart attacks. Oh, everybody dies from heart attacks. Yes, it's true. Perhaps the things that we're being given as medications to also contribute to that. Not the only factor. Okay, it's very if something causes heart attack, how easy it is for you to discern that it causes heart attack. Let's speak about that. Hey, if it causes some very common death by society, then how do you ensure that your product does not contribute to this common death in society? How do you ensure that? You don't know, right? Because there are many deaths from that. Okay, so Venus cancers, Venus in the womb. Okay, and the Mercury has to do with trade. That can also be the trade that we have around wombs, like bringing children to couples. And I've had a conversation with a woman who studied a lot about this topic, and she told me that if, let's say, even if a woman tries to get pregnant technologically, now with Uranus here, then they have so many attempts one by one that they don't even get to relax. And because they want it to be successful so much, there is so much stress around this. And if you help a couple to bring children, even if you do it volitionally, you help a couple to bring children, then they want to try again and again and again and again and again until you make it. And it's like a factory with the womb. So even if we're not talking about abuse of women or, trafficking women to do that, but we're talking about, mothers that want to do that think that this is a very beautiful act for a couple that cannot bring children, or for a single parent that cannot bring children. And they go through this system where they are being dehumanized by the process itself. And it doesn't mean that the doctors are bad. It doesn't mean that somebody is doing that on purpose. Okay, I'm speaking even in the most naive case. Just the process is like we want to do good, but we're forgetting the process. Mercury is here to remind us of the process of connecting things. The process of connecting things, because Venus is about connecting things. And Venus is about connecting things also physically. So the process of acquiring wealth, the process of physical contact, physical pleasure, okay? And there's this tendency to this process and this awareness to this process, to this bit by bit by bit by bit by bit that Mercury brings here. And it will not allow us, with the sextile to Saturn, it will not allow us to move forward or take even one more step in the wrong direction. So I'm reiterating that over and over and over again for one reason and one reason only. I want you to understand you are probably affected by this. Taurus is somewhere in your house. Venus is in Cancer. Cancer is somewhere in your house. And the way it manifests for you may be different for every person, but it is something that is so important to reiterate because Mercury sextile Saturn is correcting things now that will have longevity. So the things that will happen, I'm actually very looking forward to Mercury turning direct. And this is mainly because it is so important to move forward, but right now is the most important stage. It's the stage where, no, darling, you will not clean the house. You have a part to do on, social media or in things, or the place where you advocate. Now the moon is in Aquarius. It's not your time to clean the house, or you will only get to clean the house, or you will only get to have this lovely Friday when you address the fact that sometimes you have to ask Mahalakshmi to help you to even clean the house, and not just to clean the house for Mahalakshmi to come. Okay, for the goddess of wealth, that's related also to Venus. That, and then now you have to advocate for people. This is what you need to do, and anything that you try to do that is not that you will get this block, like it's blocked, like you try to move a mountain, because you are moving mountains, and we are moving mountains in Taurus, like since a while, with Uranus in Taurus, now with the North Node in Taurus. Jupiter is about to enter, and Jupiter is the 29 degrees of Aries. So this is the first part of this. I'm not going to delineate it sign by sign because I already did Mercury retrograde sign by sign. And whatever I say now, in a couple of minutes, we'll have another frame and another frame. But the next thing that I want to talk about is actually the passage of Venus in Leo. And for that, without further ado, let's just take a look at the hour, the planetary hour. As I'm beginning this is still Mercury hour. We're about to enter a moon hour and a Venus day. So even though the sun is not perfected, let's try and do this. Astro monthly calendar. Let's go to June. Venus. Venus enters Leo on June 5. And for this, I want you to take a look at the asteroids already. So I will do the asteroids. Once again, thanks for Peter, who recently had a solar return and a solar return for AstroSeek, for all this beautiful, endless data that we have without being having to pay money for it. And this is such a blessed creative project that is such a contribution to the astrological community, especially to accessibility, to be able to do astrology in a professional level, and have the tools that we need even before we have the money to invest. So it's kind of helping us to get out of this loop. So for Peter, he gets his creative freedom, and for us, we are getting the possibility to break out of the loop of wealth. Okay, because knowledge is also wealth, and sharing knowledge is also wealth, and a lot of us are able to even offer readings or do products with the help of these free programs. So thank you very much. Venus ingresses into Leo as she will trine Neptune, separate from a trine to Neptune. As she ingresses, she opposes Pluto. Now, if I didn't do asteroid, the first thing we would look at with this ingress of Venus to Leo is, she goes from the inconjunct to the trine with Pluto, to the opposition with Pluto. Okay. Venus and ingresses with a bang. Now she's opposing Pluto. True. She's also applying to square Jupiter. She's squaring the nodes. True. All of that is true. All of that is fated. All of that is important. But if we don't look at the asteroids, that some of them are operating like planets, like Aries, we don't understand the picture. Because Aries is in 25 degrees Aries, and Venus is separating from the square to Aries, heading towards the trine with Aries. The passage of Venus in Leo is from the square with Aries to the trine with Aries. Is from an opposition to Pluto to another inconjunct with Pluto. And so, Venus is now in the sun of the moon. Now she's dealing with the projections upon her. Okay, because the moon is projections. She's dealing with the challenges in caretaking, or in caretaking for yourself. and also getting the time to nourish herself bit by bit. As she enters Leo, she enters the domain of the soul. Soul as in S-O-L, sun. Okay, with the sun here being in Gemini. Um, and of course, she will be sextiling Sedna. So, Venus in the moon sign, like I said, it's about nourishment. It's about, no, I did not do wrong financial choices. I need to nourish my soul. How will I ever become an aromatherapist that sells products if I don't buy products, if I don't use products, if I don't experience it on myself and then make products myself, which is also expensive because I need to buy many things and to experiment and to make mistakes and to alter and to become professional in my field. How will I ever have the chance to practice what I learned and to offer services to the world if I don't get to be nourished by these services, to experience what it feels like? Okay. No, it's not the time to buy just the necessaries, just to this, just to that. How does the economy grow if people do not consume and contribute to the economy? If we do not invest in art, how will we be able to make a living as artists? Okay. Venus in Leo is about being that center, that open-hearted center that shines and projects. Okay? So the sun is projecting its light. It's casting its light. And gravity is basically a center of gravity around which the planets circle. As she is moving forward, they're being kind of vacuumed in circles to follow her. So it's a leadership role. The opposite polar is Saturn ruled Aquarius, which is responsibility or being true to scientific dogma or leading the masses, basically leading the masses, right? Venus will retrograde in Leo. And if I just take Venus will retrograde in Leo, Venus is going through the Leo placement. What has been in the Leo when the nodes were in Leo, right? The Me Too movement, which started with filmmaking industry, actresses, okay, Venusian Leos, okay, Venusian souls, performers, actresses, leaders through a story, a drama, a voice, an open heart, being able to be seen. Those were the people that were leading a revolution. Okay, now Venus is going from the square with Aries, which seems like the most problematic, but it actually isn't. And this is something that I want to emphasize to you. And I ask for maturity from my listeners because it's touching on topics that it's very easy to get, you know, inflamed by. And the square with Aries is actually not the problematic one. Why? Because Venus, it's square with Aries, it means that when Venus meets Aries, Venus wants to maintain herself. What is Venus connecting thing? What is she speaking out for? She's opening her heart and expressing her voice. Just like the beginner actresses did when they said, you know, those women that got sexually harassed, those women, I am those women. I am those women. Hey, you've been wondering why I've been off stage lately? Oh, because I got sexually harassed by this person with the name. Everybody has a name. This was the person that did. It was very personal back then. This was the person that did that to me. And then whenever I said, okay, I don't want to work with this person. I want to get a job with some other people, but they are all connected. So you haven't seen me on stage lately. I am the victim that you are talking about. I am the, battered wife, the rape victim, the sexual harassment victim. I am the girl that was supposed to get, that was expected to move up the ladder by the pants of her boss or her this or that. I am the girl that you are talking about. I am the girl that you said that she probably was not satisfied, so she falsely accused when her boss or her, I don't know, director wanted to leave her after they had an affair and so on and so on. I am the girl that you're talking about. And let me tell you my story. Okay? And that is still the square to Aries. This is when Venus does Venus. She's open-hearted, she speaks, she's vulnerable, she's shining, and she's not afraid to be seen. And we need these people to bring up the dredged issues. If we talk about this opposition now to Pluto. Okay, back then it was the inconjunct, but the opposition to Pluto. And the opposition to Pluto is we bring up, the Venusian, the women bring up the issues that Pluto exposes in the hierarchical structure. With Aquarius, we are already talking about a decentralized network of offenders. Okay? And so Venus in Leo is beginning to express her voice, and she is at odds with Aries, not because she disagrees with Aries, but because she prefers to open her heart, speak, tell her story, and let the power of the personal story lead. Here, it's different that you hear about sexual violence in the news, and it's different when somebody speaks up with her face being seen and says, I am this person. Now you can see me better. I am this person that you're speaking about. I am this, right now, Me Too veteran. That was the Me Too. This happened to me too. I am this person, and that power of leadership that has the power to connect the stories and understand from the personal stories gathering up to a scientific paradigm that no, she is not to blame, she is not imagining, she is not the hoe that tried to get through the pants, but if something is, then she is the one who said no to doing that and was ostracized by not only the men but the women that were doing that as well. Threatened to her life, unrecorded, because she said no. She said, I want to get paid. I have skill, I have talent, I want to get paid for my skill and my talent. I did not choose to be a sex worker. I went to the academia. I did not choose to be a sex worker. I went to filmmaking. I developed this talent and I worked hard for it, and I want to be appreciated. And I came here to work. I did not came here to be sex trafficked, and it's very okay if a woman is sex worker. But even women who are sex worker are being harassed at work, even if a woman is a sex worker. Okay, it doesn't give you the right to violate a sexual boundary. Nothing gives you that right, or his sexual boundaries. So this is where Venus just wants to talk and share and open up, and the power of the story and advocate. Aries stands lurking from behind, and she like, girl, you talking to a pack of pedos in a conference and opening your heart vulnerably to them, expecting what? Confirmation? Help? From who? You know? And then and as this escalates, it's like, what? Who? You've talked to, like, you've been where? With who? These pack of pedos? You tried to convince them to stop being a pack of pedos? Why? Why'd you think that's gonna work? And Venus is still steady. It's like, the power of the story, the power of this and power of that. And they're arguing within themselves. And sometimes it's the same voice within the person. It's like, what do you think that you're doing? Well, I'm giving a chance to share in my story. And then we're going to have the retrograde, which I'll soon look at. And so Venus is going to, little by little, as Pluto is retrograding back to Capricorn, no longer be able to ignore the full picture. And when that happens, when Venus is going to go direct, she's going to trine Aries. Okay? Who is Aries? Think Xena the warrior. Think of the Martian woman who will protect her rights by every means necessary and is not averse to any tactic to ensure what she feels is right. So in some cases, it can be in some cases where it's not about corruption from an actual being corruption victim, it can play out as being narcissistic or being because what it requires is great self-centeredness when Aries is in Aries. Aries is in A is about the sense of self, and Aries is fighting, so asserting. So it's kind of like a female Mars on steroids. So she is basically asserting herself by any means necessary, and she's very concentrated on her own rights. So if she doesn't act against actual corruption, she can be she can seem very narcissistic. But then it is those people who will not tolerate anything wrong that are the saviors of the day when it comes to corruption. If you can think about those figures, why not? I will bring Peter de Vries, and I did an episode about Peter de Vries, deceased Peter de Vries. And as he was alive, he had this show, was called Misdaadgeslaver, and he tended to the cases that nobody looked at of the lonely people or the people that nobody looked for that were murdered. And he went through, like, if he had to go to Australia from the Netherlands, he would be in Australia at the house of a police officer, and he would, like, he got arrested for trespassing when he was coming to hold a person that was contributing to the murder of a woman, held him accountable. Okay, so and he was a showman. He was a showman. He had Pluto on Regulus, and he was completely a show person. He very, this tall, handsome man, and very attractive. And although in his personal relations he was not particularly narcissistic, he was in an open relationship. His wife had her boyfriend, and so on and so forth. But he did project this aura of this magnet that can be seemed very narcissistic. He was indulging the attention, and he was indulging and went through the certain transformation in his life where he was enjoying the stage, and he was a creative writer, and he was like, he really manifested himself. Okay, really, lived a full life, and eventually was murdered. So why am I bringing the Vries? Because if you think about Aries or Xena the warrior, these are the people that do not shy out from the camera. They do not shy out from making a scene. They do not shy out from attention. And although those traits can be considered, sometimes to a certain degree of correctness, narcissistic, they are necessary because any other personality type or personality structure would shy out from speaking, would have invisible suffering and invisible trauma that you will never get to understand and never even get to be exposed to, that affects your life too. What people call attention whore, it's those people that raise awareness. It's those people that delve into those topics, those Plutonian topics that nobody wants to talk about. Because, like, they like poking at this, and it serves humanity. Okay? So, Venus trining Aries, it means we're gonna have this show person or show girl or show woman or show man that are not shying from attention and are acting that to bring this corruption to an end by any means necessary. On a mundane level, I cannot help but think about the United States after Pearl Harbor. Why? Because if Venus begins with, I'll just open my heart up, I'll speak with people, we're going to reach a resolution, people are going to hear the story, there's going to be the power of the story, the power of seeing my face, and there are many people and women that deal with that, and that's going to gather up and create a movement, and then we are going to change the actual reality. When that is not sufficient, Aries comes to the rescue. Okay? And I've been thinking about the Freeze a lot in recent days, and a part of me said, well, maybe he died at the right time, because then we were dealing with the sort of crime that the power of the single person that actually looks in this could make a tremendous impact on the entire world of, crime and criminals. And then it became actually decentralized. It became actually decentralized, but also organized with the people, like the exposure of the Regulian interference or the Regulian involvement in crime kind of brought to the peak what the person could do. It for not for nothing that the Freeze had Pluto and Regulus, and he was addressing these things that no other person with other significations could address. And so this Aries with Venus on Regulus, trying in it, is going to bring into the world, or going to accentuate on people who have such natal placement, or the people who will be born at this time, at the end of the passage of Venus in Leo, after the retrograde, are going to be such pivotal figures that shy of nothing and are not ashamed to drop bombs if necessary to make sure that things are changed. And as always, my intention when I'm bringing this in the spirit of Pluto, bringing this to the air, is not to invoke, because I don't need to invoke. These people don't need me. Like they're then like they don't need me. If you know the numerology of a person who is one, who summons to one, is the solist. Okay, and those people, they are solists. They are related to the numerology value of one. They're solists. They're not affected by what Shirley Youngblood says. They're not affected by what any of you says. They have their own mind and single-minded purpose that they're already predicting these things. They don't have to listen to any podcast. They don't have to, they just know. They're just being guided by themselves. Okay? And they just know. So these people are already there. They're already doing it. They're already there. What we as humanity can do is to raise, for those of us who can raise the awareness and tend to that and manifest that this passage would not necessitate A-bombs to end the atrocities against those Venusian figures and Aryan figures, in Aries figures. Okay? Think about the woman that was declared schizoaffective, or how do they call it, a psychotic, a schizophrenic, because he or she spoke up about violence they had in the family, and then were raped at hospital, and then, which unfortunately happens a lot. And then they spoke up, and so they were pathologized and were given type of pills, and then they learned that these type of pills have beta blockers, and they're given to people who deal with heart diseases, or people who do chemotherapy and against the nausea. Then they give them this beta blockers, and it's the same thing, olanzapine is the same brand even, and there were class lawsuits from here to forever. But no, we still persist in seeing this person as conspiracy theorist, as a person that is delusional, as a person who might not see the truth, and the gap between our world to the world of these people is tremendous. Even if you are a woman, okay, it's enough that you live in a neighborhood. When I was in university, then at the time of the Me Too, actually, I went not to the psychologist that I talked about, but to a previous one. And I went actually not for me, but because I knew that I needed to do a PhD in the United States, and I would have to do this, and I will be able to be TA, so I will probably run into those students that were group raped in the fraternities parties. And I went to a therapist to treat my triggers around these issues so that I will know what to tell them. I will know how to be there for them, because any story about sexual harassment or sexual or rape or whatnot was incredibly triggering for me. So I used the amphetamines that I took for ADHD to address that and kind of to penetrate the problem, so that I can grow, so that I will not have, my career impeded by that. That was before I became into veteran, okay? Because I was thinking about me tending to these students that have been through these things, and I was not worried about me because I'm not going to go to fraternities party, definitely not as a TA. We'll have other things to do. And I didn't think about the lecturers. I didn't think about, the people higher up the rank, that are also part of these atrocities. So that person, and at that time, when I would go out of the house, I lived in a neighborhood where we had a lot of harassment in the street, not necessarily physical, but and for me it was disturbing my peace a lot, and I just shared it with my therapist. So he went and asked women if they experienced this. And he said, I asked them, and they said that no, they don't experience this. I'm like, I don't know where they live. And what he thought was that I'm delusional. And and when you think about it, and I'm saying that not from a place of judging him. Of course, the root premise is incredibly narcissistic and incredibly misogynist, but he was not. It was not the conscious level that he was a narcissist, misogynist. No, he wanted to help. So I asked this point, and so he tried to ask women. He tried to relate to my experience. Basically, we're not doing something necessarily to harm, but on the other way around. But the thing is that the gap between the world of where even the women around him were living and the world that I was living in as a student who was volunteering in the developing neighborhoods in order to get housing, and that was my reality. And only when I moved to another neighborhood that was closer to university, still developing neighborhood, still with all people that have drug addicts, that have people that deal with a lot of stuff, and like still that. But only after I moved, I saw that I was no longer hyper vigilant. Like I could walk in the street and it would be relatively okay, even to the point that I was walking and then a car was going somewhere, and immediately my whole body clenched because I thought they were going towards me, but no, they were just going towards another. They're just turning into an entry to a place, and I was like, oh God. And I was ordering something in the restaurant, and somebody just asked me something, and I turned to him like this, and he was like, no, I just wanted to ask you if they have this and that in the menu. And he was being genuine, like he was not trying to harass me, and I'm like, oh my God. I have been living for 5 years, yes, 5 years. I have been living in a place that is a world away from the world of even women who live in other places. And so if I would tell my story, then the person that was wanting even to do good would say, I'm a man, I don't know the experience. Let's ask women if they deal with it, because he cares, he's also a father. And he said no, and they said no. So he said, okay, maybe I have triggers, maybe I have flashbacks, maybe I'm imagining, okay? Not in the sense that there is no traumatic source, but maybe this is a flashback, maybe this is a non-dual experience. And so the gap between the worlds was so grand that even women think that the people who go through this are imagining that this is some flashback that they have. And that is how pervasive is the reality. And so Venus in Leo in the beginning, she may get it, or she may try to explain it like I'm trying to explain this to you right now. But going back to the two world wars, there had to be 2 generations of men dead so that women that were now forced to run their businesses and to protect themselves and to be very more involved in society in ways that they weren't before, even if they loved their marital life in the previous way, okay, because there was no man around. Now they had to do this, okay. So the situation, without blaming anybody, the situation was that there were the generation of men dead before women began to vote. Because now when when they were running the business and they were running the this, they were running the that, so they were paying income taxes and they were paying property taxes and they were paying all these taxes, and you know women are good accountants no less than men, then they were like, okay, what about representation? What about my rights? No, now that I see that I run a business and I see this and I see that, now that I see that, I understand that those the fact that we don't allocate resources to this thing is actually killing us, or the fact that we are going to this war or we are agreeing to these illegal orders is actually killing us and is killing the good effort of good men, okay? So, and good women. And it's only when these men died that women were even thinking about en masse to protest, to vote in such quantities of women that it became the norm. And this is this is also the tragedy of Aquarius. Okay, it's not the marginalized society's battle. It's that the marginalized become the 99%. Who was fighting in the French Revolution? People who had lands. What about people who didn't even have lands? Well, guess what? Slavery survived the French Revolution. And that was very much harming the stability of the United States during the civil wars. But slavery was the blind spot. People didn't even conceive that we can live without slaves, because slaves was somebody living in your house. Okay, it was not necessarily you raping or violating or whatnot. It was like a person or even a woman. It was like a pet. Okay, we love our pets. Slaves and pets astrologically is, and we love our pets. We nourish our pets. We feed our pets. Okay, so they were just the people that living in your house and doing all these things. And they had food and they had their own place. Okay, it was not as fancy as you, but your cat also doesn't have a house as big as you. Okay, that was the mindset that was transforming. It was the blind spot. Think about Saturn as these people that are also slaves, and you think about Saturn in Capricorn as the people lower up the rank and their enslavement, and you think that this is the 12th. Capricorn is the 12th from Aquarius. The people in mass, it's those people, the Saturn people that are at the 12th house that we don't know that we don't know. And we have to pay special emphasis to pay attention to them. Now Venus is in Cancer, and Cancer is the 12th from Leo. So now we get the chance to see those things that those women in Leo will have to tend to. If not, they will get it from Aries. Because now Venus is actually separating from a sextile to Aries. So she got informed. Okay. And it is those things that we are going to tend to. And while we usually in astrology are more concerned about the hard aspects, in this case, I tell you, it is the trine that you need to be wary of. It is the trine of Venus in Aries. Because now they're working harmoniously. They can just tap into an A-bomb and nuke the entire world of people that where they didn't find even one saint to validate what happened to them. Okay? And this is the story of sodomy, and I mean sodomy not as kink, the genuine sodomy story. Okay, when God, I don't remember who he sent, but he sent to sodomy, and he said, "Show me one saint. Show me if you find. Go through the whole city." And this person, I don't remember what prophet, was begging him, like, "Please don't destroy the city. Please don't destroy the city." And God said, "Please go find me one saint, and I don't destroy the city." And so a lot of the people that are dealing with those Me Too-like situation are looking for this one saint so they don't have to blow the whole place up. And as Venus hits the trine with Aries, because when Venus is in tension with Aries, It's kind of like there are those women that are like, darling, the people that you open your heart to are themselves that. Okay? This person that you spill your heart to, he goes and sees you as this light-headed woman that she's to blame for what happened to her. Okay, this in my case, the psychologist that I was going to, okay, that I thought, okay, maybe it's the Gödel organ in the equation. No, he was just just the usual. He managed to play a certain role, and that was for his talents. But other than that, he was just the usual. They don't know what's energy. Okay, now they do. And the Aries part is like, but darling, it's like you just wrote, if it's my case, you just wrote a satire describing the structural problem in the academia, and you go to therapy by a person that was trained in the academia. So for you, it doesn't matter, but he was still trained in the academia. He was still coming from the Scottish institution. And you go into him and you spill your heart out, and he's acting nice in the beginning. Okay, so this Aries is kind of like, oh, darling, you're doing that again. Oh, darling, you're doing that again. Darling, we should nuke them, not speak to them. They're just gonna take your words and then they're just gonna use it against you. And Venus is going through this process. It's like, please, I want to believe in the good of man. I want to believe that I can tell my story, and if they see me, okay, because this is Venus in a solar sign. I will shine, I will stand strong, and I will open my heart, and I will speak up, and they will see it from me. Then they can't resist that. Yes, they can't look you in the eye, but then they go behind your back and they not only slander, but they arrange for things so that you will get hurt. And Aries and Venus begin to agree, and now there is no way back. So the entire cosmos has only so much time for that tickling bomb to be neutralized, and the only way it can be neutralized is by validation, acknowledgement, seeing, and changing. There is nothing beautiful about destruction. There is nothing beautiful about the damages from 2 generations of men gone, of cities and the regions around these cities being destroyed. There's nothing. It's not beautiful. It's not a lovely sight. But give us one saint that sees the truth. Give us one saint so that this doesn't poof. Because so many people have been looking for this one saint that understands, this one saint that takes action, this one saint. Okay? And this one saint, but this is also an aspect of Leo. Okay, Leo is the one. Okay, and Aries is also the one. Okay, this one saint can literally be the difference between a person who's going to be a suicidal bomber, but on a plane or on dropping a bomb or on this, and this person saying, "Oh wow, there is a person that sees me. Okay, there is hope to humanity." Okay, I seen this person now, this one person that I've seen that they are okay, then okay, I will try to see what can we do to have more people like this person and not destroy the entire humanity. I will invest in the people that are seeing me and that are validating for me, and not in destroying humanity for the sake of humanity. Okay, the A-bombs were dropped for the sake of humanity. The First World War was entered too with the thought that this is the war that will end all wars. But for to break this cycle, we definitely need those saints. We definitely need those people that see and validate and acknowledge that this is something that definitely needs to be changed, and we definitely needs to create different structures, different economies, different solutions, and they cannot be created with, oh, maybe you can save on this type of bread and buy the more simple bread, and maybe that will get you through the month. And but how will I get my business done? Well, you have to invest money to get money. Okay, where do I bring this money from? um, should I go back if somebody was sex trafficked? Should I go back to sex trafficking? No, no, this is not, no, a girl should not do that. You should be decent. You should be that. Should I go back to stealing? No, this is not okay to steal. No, you want to change your life. You want to be an honest. Where do I bring this money from? Well, you get enough money. Well, I need to eat. Well, then you buy this bread and not that bread, and maybe you can buy this oil or this epoxy. Okay, so that means that it will probably take 3 years before I gather the products with which I make the first experiment of the products that I'm supposed to market. So how am I ever going to go back to the working market as a person who tends to her health and not does self-destructive things in my work that actually make the income fluid, because like I have to spend it on addictions, on whatnot? Like, how do I break this cycle? And they're answered with a mute, or with gaslighting, or with suddenly that person that they spoke to, they left the company and now there's another person. Now, who are you? Tell me about yourself. And you have to tell everything that you went through all over again. So what's the point? Okay, if we don't break this cycle, if society does not break the cycle of judging these people, who are the people that you see evicted, that you see homeless, that you see on the street? They are veterans. They are people who said no to society. Change your freaking story. You judge them for their choices. They are going to say to you, now you can judge me for my choices. Now you can criticize me. Now when you are 6 feet under and I'm resting on your grave, finally healed. Okay? It's better to speak these words out so that we can change your reality for what it's worth, because it's a tickling bomb, and there's so many people that have been looking for this one saint to say to this Aries god. It's like, look, there's this one saint. And Aries will say, okay, let's train them. Let's inform them. Let's see if they can inform more people. Let's see if there are more saints. Maybe this saint knows more saints. Okay? So many people are looking for this one saint. Because an A-bomb is the sodomy story. We did not find an entire saint, one saint in the entire city. Then God says, I'm sorry, but I will have to do what needs to be done. I will have to destroy this city. I will have to destroy this city so that those people that are constantly living on violence and abuse and harassment and oppression, that they will be eradicated, so that there can be a chance for new life to grow. I will have to do this. And this is the story of Venus in Aries during Venus passage in Leo. Now let's look at the retrograde. Venus retrograde. I think it's Venus. Okay, so Venus does not retrograde until the next month, I think. I think it is it July? Yes, Venus retrogrades on the 23rd of July. Before that, she squares Uranus on July 2nd. But she retrogrades on the 23rd of July. I don't know if it is until the 1st of August. But this is where she retrogrades. Let's just take a look at July 23rd. So she retrogrades in 28 degrees Leo. So she's just 2 degrees away from Regulus. And then she retrogrades. And this retrogression will last until August. She will be making square to Uranus as she retrogrades, which is a beneficial aspect because it contributes to revolution, it contributes to changing things. It can also be suicide female bombers, like because Uranus is suicide. Um, and here she's already in the trine, okay? She's already trine in Aries before she retrogrades, which I love. So this, but this also means that this Aries point will be 1, 2, 3. Okay, just 1, 2, 3. So she's going to go into Aries while she's squaring Uranus. Okay, think about this. A woman that will protect her right to be sensual, open, and vulnerable by any means necessary, armed with technology of material revolution, be it bombings, be it destructive technology, be it astrology, because of talismanic materia, or whatnot. And she's armed with that. And she's manifesting Uranus. Okay, she's attracted. This is something that's a must. It's a sudden action by Venus that is in alignment with Aries. So this can be the woman that, out of the blue, gets explosive. Okay, it could also be a trans woman. Okay, with Aries, it can also be a woman and trans woman. They're working together. They find something in common that they agree on, and it's revolutionary. It can has to do, maybe they hack into the banking system. Maybe they drop certain digital coins. Maybe they hack into the communication system, to the transportation system. Anything that they where they don't have, you know, when there's this, you know, people that, for example, are homeless, then they sleep under bridges sometimes. And so there's the question, if people bomb the bridges instead of sleeping under them, will they still be homeless? Okay, it's those type of ideas that we have with Venus in a fire sign that is fixed. She's not giving in during this time. She's not giving in. And when she gets to Virgo, she just gets practical. Okay, so I wouldn't rely on waiting for the ingress to Virgo, and she goes through Regulus. So Venus is very potent. She trines already. Aries, well, planning to square Uranus. Then she goes retrograde, trines Aries and squares Uranus again. And then she goes direct, trining Aries and squaring Uranus again. Okay, so if you have not been noticing Aries, you're like, well, Venus is ingressing into Leo and she's opposing Pluto, which is very sensitive aspect and it's very potent aspect and so on and so forth. And then she will be retrograde, so women's situation will be less good. I don't know if she will be invisible or not. And that is not good news for all things Venusian. And then we're gonna have to pray hard and use our magical powers so that she will go direct. This is true in itself, but not only that, there is the Aries story to this picture. Okay, so and Aries is a planet. It's a planet. It's bigger than Pluto. Pluto is a planet. Pluto is not an asteroid. Aries is a planet. Okay, also in astrology, Aries is a planet. And it is the trine with Aries that is the more concerning, because when we are in hard aspect with Aries, then we argue with her. When we are in alignment with Aries, we can't help but agree with her. But not only with her, but also with her methods of action, because Aries is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So we agree with her actions. You can agree with the person but not agree with their actions. This is what Aries usually deals with when she's aspecting planets. It's like, we can see how you are not a bad person, but your actions are horrid. But when the trines, it's like, okay, we understand that your actions are maybe horrid in effect, but they're actually the necessary thing to do right now. This is where A bombs drop. This is, and I haven't delineated the A bombs drop, but the like with Aries, but this is where A bombs drop. This is where a certain atrocities are being performed And it seems like that was the only way out. And not only that, eventually it works. This is how the women only got the right to vote after two generations of men were dead. This is how, the risk from Japan only ended with two A-bombs and the destruction. And this is literally a genocide. Like, you cannot move away from this. This is genocide. So with this Aries squaring Pluto, there is still tension between nukes and that type of mass action. But Aries will trine Pluto, and I think Dan waits for signifying that Aries trining Pluto is also a time of significant difficulty. I don't remember exactly the event, maybe even delineated the nukes, I don't know. But that can be something like that. When Aries trines with Pluto, we we agree with those nuclei level radical actions to change something for good. It seems like this is the only choice left. But Aries trine in Pluto can also be a conversation of trans women about how they like to have sex, or a conversation of, trans men discussing the pleasures of anal sex. Like that can be Aries trine Pluto. It doesn't have to be nukes dropping. It doesn't have to be bombs. It doesn't have to be mass genocide. It doesn't have to be any of that. It could just be a couple of people that have their non-dual experience discussing some kinky taboos that they enjoy, that are harmless. This is all it can be. And this has the potential to be that, and that's it. But if we don't find one saint, then one of these people that didn't find a saint will make a massive action that will affect humanity en masse. Okay? And I will finish with returning to this notion about laziness, with which I started with this Mercury retrograde in Taurus and the chart of the day. Okay, now we are in moon hour. And this notion of people being lazy, people not wanting to work, people not wanting to do this, people not wanting to that, and this notion that from a healing point, it is this reading yourself from the sense of entitlement, or the sense that you're deserving of something in this life, that helps you to get out of victim mentality and moves you further up the road. And I call this, it's called the Australian school, and I call this Hitler school. And the reason I call it, like I said, is because the most authentic embodiment of life promises you nothing. You don't deserve anything. You're not entitled to anything in this life. Not good, not bad, not anything. Okay? This whole embodiment of life is what it is. And if I have to kill them all constantly and live in constant war, this is life. It is what it is. The most brilliant example of this school of thought in Western society in modern times is Adolf Hitler, and not only in Mein Kampf, but in his actual praxis. Okay, he was fighting, and then committing a suicide and dying. That's Hitler's life. That's Hitler's career from beginning to end. What are the facts? The fact is that you need biodiversity to sustain. The fact is that you learn a gratitude from this religion and gratitude from that religion, and you combine them together and you see what's good for you. The fact is that the nutrition for this person is not the nutrition for the other person. One person will benefit from raw veganism or fruitarianism, while the other person will have to need to eat bone broth to sustain themselves, and otherwise they have damage for the nervous system. Okay, we are diverse and we rely on this diversity to have a strong immune system. If you have a dog, then you want to have, let's say you want to have a golden retriever. Okay, so it's such a cute dog brand, and yeah, breed, and you go to a reputable breeder. We want to make sure is that you know that they are somehow mixed with the breed that is a bit far for, there's not golden, they can maybe mix with the Labrador, there is also a retriever, they may be mixed with other type of breeds, which is important to know because they can be breeded with a pit bull or whatnot, and then you need to know the breed. Okay, it doesn't mean necessarily anything bad, but if you don't know that your dog needs that type of leadership, then you need to know that. And so it's done so that their nervous system, so that their immune system is strong enough, and you don't have to go to the vet or lose your dog prematurely because they're strong enough to sustain. How do they do this? By breeding with other breeds. What is that? Biodiversity. And this pertains to our emotional well-being, it pertains to our psychology, it pertains to our own immune system, um, to our economy, it pertains to our religious beliefs and our politics as well. Okay, if you only have bipartisan blue pill or red pill, you cannot have a conversation. If you are a woman in America that wanted to sustain the right to have an abortion, as well as not be forced to vaccinate herself by the brand that was killing more people in the history of pharmaceutical than probably any brand, then she couldn't choose not Biden and not Trump. With Trump, she couldn't abort. With Biden, she would have to vaccinate herself forcefully. Okay, so the bipartisan is not fit for a structure that allows. We still need more parties. We don't want to have it as much as Hitler, that he was having a relative majority, and then he could be using certain like collapsing the structure. Was the Gödel part in the theorem of in the group of democracy, right? And we don't want that, but we also don't want a bipartisan structure that has no place for rejuvenation, for actual rejuvenation, even if you limit the time that somebody can be a president. So there's no place for complexity or intricacy. Um, and so we are reminded with this Mercury bit by bit by bit, frame by frame by frame, that we really need to be that saint for someone next to us. Everywhere around you, that there are people that are going deadly. Okay, everywhere around you, if you're the United States, everywhere around you, that can be a person that can take a gun and must shoot everybody because they didn't find a saint that sees them, that validates them, that understand that they are not telling you a conspiracy theory, that they are not lying if they speak up, because a lot of them will not speak up. A lot of them will not speak up. And they went through atrocities. Okay? So, like I said, in Israel, we had Sapir, rest in peace, that basically dressed as a terrorist, a guerrilla warrior, and came with a gun, which I think was even fake. And she screamed Allah Akbar, which means God is great, and she knew that she was gonna get shot to death, and she got shot to death. Why did she do that? She actually served in the army, was a very good soldier, and got awards and everything. So she wasn't the people that commit suicide in the army, which also happens. But for her, the story of her life is that the welfare did not help. She suffered violence all her life. In the army, she was shining, but then she got released from the army, and then the consistency of the lack of help persisted, and she knew that the only way that she can get herself killed after she tried to kill herself is by doing what she did. Well, and she also knew that this is the death that you would hear about, because other deaths you will not hear about, because if people commit suicide, then it isn't the other than the kind of Plutonian stuff, it's also the fear that it will cause more people to commit suicide when you hear about someone that did that and how they did that. But somebody else can say it and come with a real gun and start shooting people around. because they didn't find that one saint that can help them, that can even validate them, that can even acknowledge them, that can even do something together to gather up. And everybody, even well-meaning people, do the wrong things, like, oh, let's call the welfare, where they rape people, where they take children and take them to human trafficking. And then if you see that as conspiracy theory, because the gap between worlds is so much, like that psychologist, that when I was living in a neighborhood where I couldn't get in the street, like get to the, like walk to the university without a car booping and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, I was living with other people, so they saw that they were witnessing that. Um, and that psychologist, even his women friends, were not living in these regions where it's that acute. So he believed that if he asks women, and I am a woman, so if women tell him about experience, I must be telling something that is not real. Okay, so if you are this person who's like that psychologist who tried to get into the experience, and it is so far from your worlds, the gap between worlds is so far, that you get to believe that maybe they are imagining, they're not seeing reality, simply because they are living in a reality that is distinctly different from the reality that you are living in, by the merit of their location, by the merit of the situation in life, by whatnot, by things that you don't see. Then you're running the risk of missing the opportunity to be that one saint in sodomy before this person that tries to get help in any way possible decides, I'm going to kill them all, I'm going to nuke them if it is in my power, and so new life can grow. Maybe I will die, but the new life can grow, will at least have a chance to grow differently. Okay, that's what happened in Pearl Harbor. That's what happened in the sodomy story. And this is why the point of concern here is both for the Venus trine in Aries, but more so the Aries-Pluto trine. It's the Aries-Pluto trine is where we agree not only with the person, but also with the radical action. And this is a time where we didn't find a saint. So all hope that we won't get to that, because like you said, Aries Pluto can simply be a pack of transgender people making jokes about anal sex, volitionally consensual anal sex. That's pretty much what it can be. It doesn't have to be world wars, atrocities, nukes, famine, genocide, brother graves, and all that. It doesn't have to be. So with that, I'll end this episode.